Bank robbery at First National Bank. Hi and welcome to the Daily News. Today's crime story is about a daytime bank robbery that happened in Cambridge. Waterloo Regional Police were called to the First National Bank yesterday. The bank was robbed at 12:15 p.m. No customers were hurt, but one robber was shot by the police. It was reported that $1 million was stolen. 17 customers were in the bank at the time of the robbery. They followed the instructions of the robbers and got down on the ground. One robber was shot by a police officer while he was leaving the bank. When the robber was shot, the customers screamed and were frightened. The robber was hit by one bullet, but he escaped with the other robbers and they drove away in a white truck. Many clues were left at the bank and several customers were interviewed on TV about the robbery. They were happy to be alive after this terrible experience. Clues are still under investigation. The most important evidence is the fingerprints of the robbers. The fingerprints were found on the desk, on the doors, and on the guns. 2 guns were left at the bank, and the robbers escaped in a truck. As mentioned before, one robber was shot, and the blood he left on the floor is another important clue. Police investigators are analyzing the fingerprints and the blood. The 3 robbers were caught on video. They were filmed by the bank's security cameras, but the police couldn't identify them. The video has been analysed by the police. They're working very hard to find the robbers and the stolen money. This was a 10th bank robbery in Waterloo region this year and a 3rd one in Cambridge. Please call the police if you have any information.
The summer of 1920s. Krakow people had a very terrible time. There was a famous serial killer called the Nailer. More than 10 people were killed by him. In the cold streets of Krakow, Polish people were walking in terror and they were scared of seeing the Nailer. The victims were generally middle-aged adults. Unluckily, none of the murders were witnessed by anybody around the crime scenes. He could not be stopped by the police forces, because crime scenes were left without evidence. The killer was a man of details. Panic and fear among the people were increased day by day, especially after the letter which was sent to the police. In the letter, he made fun of the police's attempts to catch him and promised to kill more people again. It finished, "Yours truly, the Nailer." This was the first of many letters which were sent to the police. The murders continued, 20 in total, but in November, no one was killed. 3 months later, he started killing again. The Nailer was never caught, and for more than 20 years he was examined by the writers and the detectives. They tried to discover his identity. Hundreds of articles and books have been written, and many films have been made about his murders. But the question, who was the Nailer, was never answered. After the research, it was found that he was a carpenter. He was a very hard-working person. However, he lost his mental health and started to hurt people. His life story was written by a Polish writer in 1960. Those days in horror and fear are still remembered by the old people in Krakow.
Good afternoon, everyone. In today's podcast, I have chosen a subject which includes artists and regular people. Although artists and regular people have different worlds, these people have something in common: their appearances. Yes, they look like each other, and it is almost impossible to tell the difference. John Burton, who is a writer in People's Magazine, has a very interesting article on the topic. I want to introduce you with some parts from this article and these amazing celebrity lookalikes. You probably haven't heard of Danny Lopez, but he's an amazing person who looks exactly like actor Johnny Depp. He is one of the most successful celebrity lookalikes in the world. Danny started acting at the age of 7, and he's appeared in over 400 films, plays, and TV shows as an actor and a musician. He first realized that he looked like Johnny Depp in 1984, when he saw Johnny in the film A Nightmare on Elm Street. These days, Danny works as a professional Johnny Depp lookalike. He makes appearances at private parties and public events all over the world. He has worked for many famous companies which helped him gain worldwide fame. He also has done a lot of work for charity. It can be a fun job sometimes, says Danny. He thinks that the best thing about his job is making kids happy. He often dresses as characters from Depp's films, who children like a lot. He spent over $20,000 on costumes that make him look like Captain Jack Sparrow, Willy Wonka, or the Mad Hatter. And an incredible coincidence is that Danny and Johnny were born on exactly the same day, 9th of June, 1963. And the next person that I want to introduce is Susie Kennedy. She is probably the world's most famous Marilyn Monroe lookalike. She's been on TV all over the world and she has made adverts for the companies such as Citroën and Pepsi. Susie can act and sing exactly like Marilyn, and in 2009 she appeared in the play Marilyn and Lucy, which was staged in London's West End. She has also appeared in a number of films as Marilyn. She started in the Italian comedy that is called Me and Marilyn in 2010, and the film made £2 million in its first weekend. Susie, who has also worked as a model, has worn a lot of Marilyn Monroe's original clothes and film costumes. The real Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, but Susie's life has never been more exciting than it is now.
My name is Corey and I am an interpreter. You usually have to speak 2 or more foreign languages to work as an interpreter. And you usually need a degree which is related with languages. Most importantly, you have to learn how to listen and speak at the same time. At first, you should do this in your own language. I used to listen to the news in English and immediately repeat them in English when I was a student. This was my basic practice for every day. Then I had to translate the news which are originally in other languages into English. And this was my second practice, which was way more difficult. The training is stressful and the work is too. But now I have a job that I love. I work at international conferences and I can make translations in 4 different languages. It's impossible for one person to translate for more than half an hour, so we have to work in pairs and take turns every 30 minutes. And in that half an hour we have to interpret about 4,000 words. But of course we can't translate the people who forget to turn on their microphones, and sometimes they do forget.
My name is Joe and I'm from the United States, and I work as a paramedic. Paramedics are healthcare workers who help doctors in hospitals, clinics, or ambulances. You don't have to have a university degree to become a paramedic. For example, I didn't go to university. I just joined the ambulance service. I had to study a lot and do on-the-job training for 3 years. But I didn't have to pay for it. The government did. It's a great job, which also has a lot of difficulties. You have to know everything about the human body. For example, a paramedic has to learn the names of all the different bones in the body, and there are 206 of them. And of course, if you're a paramedic who works in ambulance, you have to be an excellent driver. We have a lot of training for that. But the most important thing is that we have to stay calm in an emergency. Like the call we had yesterday. We had to help a man who fell off a roof. That was a real emergency situation. But about 7 out of every 10 phone calls aren't emergencies at all. People call us even for the smallest details, like taking a pill.
Although women make up 47% of the workforce in the USA, they must always find ways to escape from social expectations that force them to be the mother or the keeper of the house. We need to stop making these responsibilities only the ladies' responsibility. In addition to giving the ladies a list of do's and don'ts, let's offer a list to the men about what they can do to help ladies feel equal at workplaces. Gentlemen, you must tell the women in your life to run for office or go for that promotion and explain to them how you will help them succeed. Because even though women are equally qualified, they don't consider themselves as ready for promotions. When women run for office, they're just as capable to win as men. But in today's work environment, employers usually prefer men employees if there's a higher position. Even if there is women option with better qualifications, men usually get the job with higher salaries. That's why women sometimes don't feel confident about being candidate for open positions and sometimes need your support and encouragement. Another thing is that you shouldn't ask women where their children are or who's taking care of them. I'm asked this question every single time that I travel to another city or country for work. Gentlemen, do you really fear that I left my 4-year-old twins at home alone? No, I don't think so. I believe you ask this because you want to show that you care about my motherhood. This is sweet. However, no one ever asks this question to my husband. It means that my absence is unusual or bad for my daughters, and I'm expected to be with them all the time. And related to this subject, you must stop using the word mother to mean parent, because all the responsibilities of mothers are actually the responsibilities of both mothers and fathers. Maybe you should consider using the word parent to mean parent. And lastly, I recommend you to stop praising working mothers for doing it all. I know your intentions are good, but your admiration suggests that this situation is difficult but normal. Good intentions make these comments no less harmful. You must accept that women are as strong as men and they can do any difficult jobs as men can do. However, you must also know that both taking care of children and taking care of the house are responsibilities that must be shared by men and women equally. It's not normal that only women are doing it all.
Good morning, America. Today I have a very special guest who works as a career consultant, Dr. Adams. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
In your latest article, you say the first few minutes of your workday are critical because they determine your productivity for the next 8 hours. If you're late to the office, you can easily lose track and have a hard time for the rest of the day. So, Doctor, can you explain to us how the first few minutes have so much effect on our workday?
Well, I did some research on the subject and found out that there are some common mistakes that everyone makes. Some people waste their productivity within the first 10 minutes of their workday by making these mistakes. For example, if you're showing up late to work, you could be harming your workday before it even begins. Also, bosses usually think that employees who come in late are less hardworking and give them lower performance ratings, even if those employees leave later too.
That's unfair.
Yes, it is, but it is also real. Or if you forget to say hi to your co-workers, it is no good for you. You see, you can set a pleasant atmosphere for yourself and others around you by having a little conversation with your colleagues in the first few minutes. Offices where people talk to each other are always more charming places.
Yes, I read that about too. The article said if you're staying silent on your desk all day long, you appear less approachable to your colleagues. It makes sense.
Yes. Another research suggests that the best time to drink coffee is at 10 a.m. I mean, if you're an early coffee drinker, you may want to change this habit. That's because the stress hormone cortisol, which regulates energy in your body, generally peaks between 8 and 9 a.m. When you drink coffee during that time, your body starts producing less cortisol and depends more on caffeine.
Wow, it is good that I learned about this. I do it all the time.
Yes, you should be careful about your health on work days. Another result I found out about health is that you should get some sunlight early in the morning. If office workers get natural sunlight early in the morning, they feel healthier and have a more positive mood. Getting unnatural and artificial bright light in the morning causes depression and sleep disorder. So if you don't sit next to a window, maybe you can consider spending a few minutes in the garden.
Well, thank you very much for the advice, Dr. Adams. I'm sure everyone has enjoyed it.
You are most welcome.